Hi there everyone, thank you for joining our session today on Nintex Doc Gen for Salesforce. My name is William Sandy, I'm based in the London office, and alongside me I have Thomas Clark and Palesa Sikwane. Guys?
Hi, so my name is Thomas Clark. I'm a technical evangelist here at Nintex, and I've been working across the technical evangelist team as well as the support team for a few years. Working in both SharePoint and Salesforce ecosystems across the entire Nintex platform.
Hi, my name is Palesa Sikwane, also working for the London office. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa, mainly due to the fact that I work as a technical evangelist covering Southwest, Eastern, Central Africa, as well as Israel. And I'm actually excited to be here.
Cool, thanks guys. So just before we dive into the content, just run through housekeeping and agenda. As usual, you will be muted during this webinar, and it will also be recorded and sent to you in the coming days. Feel free to post in the chat. We'll try and pick up questions as we go in between slides or in the Q&A at the end. And please take 2 minutes at the end of the webinar to fill out our survey. The feedback is really useful for us. Onto the agenda. So we'll be covering obviously what DocGen is and how it works, diving in deeper to DocGen for Salesforce and how that exactly works, and then we'll look at some customer case studies, use cases. Then Tom and Palesa will run us through a technical demo later, and then we'll try and get some time at the end for some Q&A. So just before we start, I just want to run a quick poll to kind of gauge the audience's familiarity with Nintex Document for Salesforce or document generation in general. So I just launched this poll here, and if you could just fill it out. So are you an expert? Are you familiar with Nintex Document for Salesforce? Familiar with other solutions maybe? You get the concept but want to learn more? Or you just don't know how you ended up here. So I'll give you a few more seconds just to do that. Okay, we'll close it off there. Interesting, so we had 36% familiar with it, and we had 64% that wanted to learn more. So good mix there. So let's dive into what document generation is. So it's a data-driven process. It cuts out the need for manual document creation in your lives, drawing on the data that's already sitting in your Salesforce environments and other environments, other external sources such as Apex or Service Maps, and puts it into your familiar document template. So think contracts, service documents, or order forms, for example. Quotes is another one, and puts it into the formats that are also familiar to you, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, etc., and does it through and delivers your document through familiar methods. So out the box, you can download that document package, put it into email, into your document queue or content library, and also got third-party integration, so e-signature, cloud storage, Adobe Sign, Box, O365 are good examples there. And perhaps the most important point, it keeps your documents compliant. So every single, update the slide there, and it keeps your documents compliant. So every single document template is fully customizable within our component library, meaning every single document you produce is consistently correct, and it draws in the right data at the right time. So you know where it is at the right time. Drawing in things like T's and C's, contract terms, client details, obviously, essentially, and maybe quote figures is another good example there. So every single document coming out of your business is legally compliant with no human errors. So I'll move on there and let Palesa take over and give us kind of a deeper insight into that.
Thank you, Will. So just to talk about document generation, the one thing that I'd like to stress is DocGen is a service that we provide at Nintex. And it's a service that spans across multiple ecosystems. So whether you're using Salesforce or SharePoint, you can still leverage some of those capabilities. So the first step around document generation is that you need to gather your data. So with this step, you usually have to find a way to get to your data. So in the context of this webinar, we're obviously going to be making use of some of the Salesforce methodologies of getting to some of our data, such as querying Salesforce objects, or maybe going as advanced as running some so-called queries. But irrespective of that, with document generation, you need to gather your data. The second step is being able to create and tag your templates. So the first thing that I usually do when I explain this is give the example that, well, a document template is typically a document that has static information or maybe dynamic information that could be inserted into that document at runtime. So static information could be things like terms and conditions, maybe definitions within a contract, and dynamic information could be who the document is addressed to, or maybe something like the mailing address of that document, or maybe something as far as having line items in a table within that document specific to a Salesforce object. The third step is to add conditions and rules. So with this step, with our document generation capability, we allow you to include certain sections of a document using conditions and rules. And then the last thing that you need to do with document generation is set your document delivery. So like William explained earlier on, we allow you to make use of one or many ways of delivering that document. So either whether you're downloading it or emailing it to a customer, or maybe you're going ahead and using some of our third-party integration tools for e-signature, or maybe using online repositories like Dropbox and other online file storage systems. And then with that, I'd like to hand over to Tom, and I'd like to ask him what's so special about document generation for Salesforce, and why is it the main topic for this webinar?
Okay, so thank you very much, Palesa. So the first thing to really know is everything that Palesa's kind of reviewed there really make up the four main pillars of document generation within the entire Nintex platform. Whether you're using document generation for Salesforce in this particular case, or whether you're using it externally via, say, Nintex Workflow for SharePoint, these pillars, these steps remain the same. Now, when it becomes special for document generation for Salesforce is we take all of these steps and we bundle it together into something called a document package. And we'll walk into what sort of makes the product a bit special. So, first of all, document generation for Salesforce is completely native to Salesforce. So the whole experience, the configuration steps, the management is completely native. And it's a very easy thing to do, pulling in the general Nintex ethos of clicks, not code, of easy configuration that can be managed in a familiar way. In this case, we want to have a document generation product that is suited to the Salesforce environment and makes the most of the Salesforce environment in front of it. Now, to complement that, well, we're completely Lightning ready, and we're even working on a new Lightning design experience for our document packages that I'll try and show you at the end, as well as delivering a seamless user experience. So you can sort of get an idea from some of the screenshots of how we can integrate into the layouts and the pages of Salesforce itself. And then in terms of some of the specific features, using things like Excel as middleware to really power up your documents in terms of what you can achieve. So using all of the functionality from Excel to perform complex calculations, if statements and formulas in order to calculate certain things before that document is put together and bring those resulting calculations into the document. And then if you want to connect up to the wider Nintex platform and start thinking about what is it that you're doing with that document after the fact, after you've generated. If the sales team pass that document over to another department, what process is that involved in? And whether or not that can be sent over to another automated solution if required. And everything really boils down to three main pillars of any data, any document, any delivery in terms of achieving a simple to complex automated document scenario. You need to be able to pull any of that data from your Salesforce org, map it to any particular document or a mix of documents and then be able to deliver it in a number of different ways. And that doesn't mean that you're bound by one of those. You can have a selection of them all configured in slightly different ways. And then we talk about how is the product actually being used? What sort of things could I automate and generate? Well, really, the world's your oyster in terms of what type of documents you can actually generate, whether it be government-based documents, legal contracts, terms and conditions, or if you move over to the sales sphere, looking at quotes and proposals, non-profit, looking at particular letters, acknowledgement letters, thank you letters. All of these are documents that could be generated automatically through the use of document generation for Salesforce. So given that in mind, Will, would you be able to just tell us a little bit about which customers are using Nintex currently?
Sure. So I think, I'll just pop this slide up here. I think that sort of selection of companies kind of speaks for itself, really on just the broad range of types of industry that we can touch with Nintex Document Generation for Salesforce. Just on that screen alone, you've got manufacturing, retail, healthcare, FinServ, technology, not-for-profits, logistics, government as well. And this is just a small sample. We've got over 2,000 customers using Nintex Doc Gen right now. And just a few examples, you can find Cartelligent, Yamaha, and Strategic Growth up there, and VIF Education on our website. We have case studies for them. I'll just give you a bit of detail into a few of them right now. So Yamaha, for example, used us primarily first off for contract production. So initially they were taking up to 4 weeks to produce one contract, which was obviously building up in their queues and creating thousands of contracts that their reps had to produce every single month. We reduced that down to the click of a button. And so I'll just put up a couple of quotes there. You can see Mike Mikado, CRM manager at Yamaha. He was pretty thankful for what we did for them. Cartelligent as well is a good example. So they were actually users of Salesforce and DocuSign for over 10 years. And they were spending so much money on kind of these small, not very powerful software products to try and join them together, but they couldn't really do it. They were making their sales guys go to lots of different portals and software to be able to produce the document packages that they needed. We united those systems very easily, and now they use us to automate 90% of their documents company-wide, which is pretty impressive. Another example, Strategic Growth, bit of a different example actually. Since implementing Nintex Doc Gen for Salesforce, they've increased case study production by 300%, which again is extremely impressive. You'll also be able to find examples of case studies on our website from LinkedIn and an estate agent called Meritage Homes. So go and check them out. So I'll hand over back to Tom again to take us through the demo.
Yep. So I'll just sum up some basically what we're going to be talking about in the demo. So Palesa will be running us through an account summary demo, looking at how you can pull information that could be spread across an entire account. We all have contacts, we all have opportunities, we have multiple objects that are associated to these one accounts, and looking at how we can merge all of that information together. And then following on from that, we'll run a quick demo in how you can go from a single generation up to a mass generation scenario and the different ways in which you can interact and trigger document packages. And finally, we'll round this out with a quick demo of our latest Lightning design experience, which was being shown and discussed at Dreamforce last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just like Tom explained, I've got a demo that obviously makes use of some of the capabilities within Salesforce. So just to paint the picture, we've got a fictitious company called Safalo Realty, where they've got multiple accounts, and then for each account there's typically information such as the owner of that account as well as the primary contact. But it goes a little bit deeper than that, because for each account, there could be multiple opportunities, which in turn could have multiple products that Safado Realty sells, or multiple products that are related to that opportunity. So if I go into my Salesforce quickly, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to one of my accounts over here. You'll see that under my recently viewed accounts, I can then go ahead and access one of them. So I'm just going to use Pacific Northwest Incorporated as an example. And then if I open this account, just like what I've explained in the scenario background, we can immediately see on Salesforce that we've got some metadata linked to this account. So like I've mentioned, we've got multiple opportunities linked to this account. Each opportunity has a specific stage that it could be in, because remember, you could have an opportunity that's currently within the negotiation or review stage, or something that's already closed off as won or lost, or in some cases, maybe something that's going through a proposal or quote stage. And then just to give you some context as well, this opportunity has other information that I've mentioned. So not just the owner of that opportunity, but also specific products that might be linked to each of these opportunities. But in any case, what I'd like to do is generate an account plan summary for this particular account, just to give me an idea of what's happening with this account. So if I go into my document generation, I'm using a Lightning experience. I can go ahead and click on account plan summary. Immediately you can see that this picks up some of my contacts. I'm just going to use Carol White as an example. And then just to make this quicker for the sake of this demo, I'm going to download the PowerPoint. So what actually happens in the background, which I'll show you a bit later, is that the document generation capability that we have within Salesforce is going to take that account, query all of the opportunities, and for each opportunity, return information around the products that were purchased as well as the quantity. So to do some of that, we're using some of the relationship capabilities within Salesforce, such as looking up Salesforce objects or Apex data or unrelated data. So if I quickly open this account plan summary for Pacific Northwest, immediately you can see that it's available. And if I open that within PowerPoint, I'll just make it full screen, you'll see that this has gone ahead and generated my account plan summary. So I've obviously referenced the name of my account, and as the account owner, my metadata is over there. Now, what's interesting to see is that here we have a typical aliasing scenario. So aliases are a way where you can reference particular data from a field within Salesforce into tables within your document. So for this particular opportunity, this particular account, we can see that there are these 5 opportunities linked to this account, and then each of them have a close date as well as a revenue amount. And we can take this further with our document generation capabilities to actually build an aggregated report similar to this, where we can separate each of these opportunities by stage. So I can see immediately here that if I look at my closed won opportunities, I've got around about 319,000 USD. And then we can even go further around each of these opportunities. So if I look at my individual opportunities, I can then use document generation to get information around the different line items. So if I look at this first opportunity, we can see who the owner is and some of our generic information such as the stage, but then we can go a level deeper to find out which products made up that opportunity and see the different prices as well. So this has been replicated across each of the opportunities over here. And then if you go into our last slide on this document that's been generated, we can then use some of our data that's been calculated to aggregate that data and split it into things like current year revenue, expected revenue, as well as total revenue. So what I'm going to do now in a second is show you what this would look like from a design point of view when you are actually defining your document template. So I'm just going to split this across on this screen over here, and then I'm going to go into my document template itself. So if you look at my document template over here, you'll notice that we've got some of these tags. So these are the tags that we get from within Salesforce itself. And then if I go into some of my opportunity data for that account, you'll notice that we've got other tags in there where we can list specific line items. So this is what we mean when we're talking about being able to define your template and add tags as well. And then just to give an idea of what that document package looks like within the context of Salesforce, I'm quickly going to go into my document packages over here. And then you'll see that the document package for account plan summary will be listed over there. And you can see that it's tied to an account object within Salesforce. And then if I go ahead and I edit this, this literally gives me that same interface or an interface that allows us to perform those 4 steps that we talked about earlier on, that being able to gather your data, defining your templates, adding conditions and rules, as well as manipulating your delivery. So if you look at this document package, we can immediately see that we're able to define things like the output file name using some of our Salesforce data. And then when it comes to some of the fields that we can tag our document with, we can open this field tagger over here. So you can see that this obviously runs in the context of the account, because that's what we're interested in when we're doing this sort of report for an account plan summary. And then at any time, we can go ahead and actually test some of our tags. So if I open this lookup control over here, I can select an existing account. So let's use Pacific Northwest, since we've generated a document for that. And then for each of these tags, which we inserted into our Word, PowerPoint to Excel document template, we can actually test and see if the data is correct. Another thing which I briefly spoke about around the aliases as well is we're able to manipulate that over there. So if I go into my opportunity as an example, and then I select one of my aliases where I could, for example, list some of my accounts, I can then view that information and make use of the lookup functionality as well. And then if I go further down, we can do advanced configuration as well. So if, for example, we needed this document only to run at a specific stage, we could do that. And then when it comes to what makes up this document, we've got the section over here where we can actually reference some of our document templates, which could be stored within Salesforce or any other repository. And then notice that I've only got 2 files within there. So how this works is that the first file, we're actually using a technique where we describe as Excel as middleware, where we insert data and get data back. So that's how I was able to achieve that chart over there. So if you look over here, we can see immediately what our report file is, and we can see which range we're using within our Excel spreadsheet. And then I'll just give you a quick glance of that. I did this beforehand. So what actually happens is the moment that we inject information such as the opportunity name, as well as the stage and the amount for that opportunity with our data from within Salesforce, we can actually make use of some of the capabilities within Excel to aggregate that data. So as you can see over here, for my open opportunities, it's picked up the total as well for my closed opportunities. And then we also take this a step further where we actually go ahead and insert some of our opportunities, the close date, the corresponding amount, and we leverage some of those capabilities within Excel to do some advanced formulas so that we can come back and get some information around each of our quarters, for example. And that is how that ties into the document template. And then just going down as well, the last thing that I'd like to just talk about quickly is around the delivery options. You can manage this from within the document template, as well as relationships. So relationships, for example, are a way of defining how you want to get to that data. So with this account plan summary, it's a typical aliasing scenario because, for example, with our document template, if you guys remember correctly, we wanted to be able to distinguish all of the different opportunities linked to that account and take it a step further and find all of the listed product items for that particular opportunity. And then you can obviously, like Tom mentioned earlier on, add steps to go back and update your Salesforce data, which will show you in the next demo using the insert update feature.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for that, Palesa. So at this point, I'll take over and show you the next demo. So we've had a look at how the document is getting, or the document package has been put together. And I'm just going to go and share my screen. Okay, great. So now that everyone can see my screen. So as I was saying, basically we've had a look at how a document package is generally put together, and I'll go into a bit more depth of that with our new design experience. But what I want to show you is how we can surface some other scenarios. So in this case, I have the need for contacting particular contacts who may have attended my corporate events. Maybe they have attended a webinar, for example, and we want to generate some form of notification or thank you letter. We often see this with a lot of non-profit organizations in a sort of charity-based Salesforce environment. But in this case, we're going to keep it fairly straightforward and look at how we can go from generating a letter for one person to generating it, say, for multiple people at the same time, using some of the features of Salesforce itself to help out with that. So here I am on my contact record, and the first thing I want to do is I need to recognize how this person is being contacted. So I know that this person only wants to receive emails, right? They don't want to receive a physical letter. That's how they've told us they want to be communicated with. And we need to be able to mark whether or not that event has occurred, whether we've acknowledged them. So here I'm able to jump into my package options, and you can see all of the different document packages that are associated to the contact object type. So I could generate any of these. Now in this case, I'm going to say the thank you letter, and I'm going to go ahead and generate it. If I want to, I could even add some additional attachments at this point. In this case, I'm going to opt not to. And then I can choose a couple of different methods for doing it. Now, in this case, I want to email the user. I want the user to receive that letter. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what it's going to do is it's going to show off the use of that insert update functionality. So once the document's generated, it's going to automatically send out that letter to the user via email. It'll also attach it back to the record. But most importantly is it's going to confirm to my record that that letter was in fact sent. So I'm just going to refresh that Salesforce record and go across the details, and you can see that following on from running that, it's actually been ticked. Why that's important is because of a mass generation scenario. So if I came away from an event, it's very unlikely that I'm going to remember 40 or 50 contacts that I may need to go back to. So what you can do is you can actually utilize Salesforce views and list views to actually help manage this. So in this use case, I've got a bunch of users who actually want to receive a letter, and they haven't been acknowledged yet. So rather than go through the effort of going to each contact, I can create a package that can be run against multiple contacts at the same time. So here, for example, I can actually tick every single one of them. And this is another way in which we surface within Salesforce itself to generate Salesforce buttons. Here I've got a button for generating documents that will take me through to all the available packages. But if I wanted a button, say, specifically for send letter, then I could tie a button to a single document package. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to thank you letter for here. And in this scenario, rather than emailing them directly, what I need to do, because they're letters and they need to be posted out, is I need to queue them. I need to send them to the document queue that Palesa mentioned earlier, and generate multiple documents at the same time. So when I run this, those requests are going to be processed. Now, maybe if you're generating 250 documents, that may take a few minutes, so you would want to give it some time. Now, whilst we wait, if I go over to the pending letter acknowledgement, you're going to notice that those users are still there. As I refresh, lo and behold, certain records start to drop off the list as they are updated with that acknowledgement tick box and a letter is created for them. Now, from my perspective, I need to send these on to, say, a printer or whatever it may be. So I'm going to jump into my document queue, and I'm going to go to all. And what I will see are all of the documents that I just created. Now, these will all attach back into the record. We can open up one of these documents. So if I open up that thank you letter, we've gone ahead and generated a thank you letter. We've pulled in all of their information, any unique reference information for them, and I'm able to include my own corporate branding, logos, and the layout and structure of a formal letter. But if I wanted to take all those documents and do something, round them up in some way, well, I can select which documents that I want and then utilize some of our features such as download as one PDF. So do I want all of those forced into one document that I can download? Or maybe I want to have separate files. So I can go ahead and request that to be downloaded as zip. So all of those will be merged together and I'm able to receive a zip file with all of those letters created for me.
Tom, I've got a question that just came in right now around the mass generation. So somebody just asked if with the insert update, is it only limited to a checkbox?
No, so you could go and perform multiple updates. You could update any field within the record. Generally, it follows the same sort of ethos as what I mentioned earlier of any data within Salesforce. As long as we can reach the objects, then we would be able to get into the properties behind those objects and update any property that we need. And that could be multiple properties at the same time across multiple objects.
Okay, thanks.
So one final thing which we would probably need if we were sending these over to the printer would actually be to look about how we can help them to send out those letters. So one of the requests that came on off the back of this particular use case was the ability to generate one document that might have multiple details about multiple contacts. So here, for example, I could come up to the top of this account and I could say, well, actually, all the people who have specified that they wanted a letter, well, I want to be able to generate a postal label, for example, pulling in their address and their contact information and generating that into one formatted document so that we can send it off to the printer so those postal labels can be attached. So here I'm going to run that particular document package. So what that will do is it will go and query each of the users who have specified that they want a letter delivery. It's a live demo. Please forgive me. We'll give that one more go. Go back to the account. So what we'll do is we'll do that once more. Generate account labels. And we'll run that document package. Apologies for this. Testing it just before and it was working. So what we'll do is we'll jump over to the next demo. So apologies for that. Okay, so to sum up from that, we're able to generate documents from multiple objects, whether that be on a single case basis, on a mass basis, or across an array of objects for one particular account. And what I want to show you now is how we're going to be fully utilizing the Lightning experience moving forward in order to deliver a new design experience. So what I'm going to do is switch over to our designer. And here you're going to be able to see a new view for creating document packages. So first and foremost, everything's on one page. You no longer have to switch between particular pages. There aren't any page loads. Everything will happen through these Lightning components. And it's really there to help speed up the process of creating these document packages and making it a far more integrated and user-friendly experience. So here I'm able to come in and I'll be able to go and name my document package. So here I'm going to call it Customer Quote Summary. And what I want to do is I want to be able to pull in, similar to the use case that Palesa showed earlier, I want to pull in opportunity data in order to provide a quote summary to a customer. So I need to first start it on the opportunity record. From there, I want to specify what type of record it is. In this case, we're going to call it a type of report because it's going to go pull a lot of different information. And then I can specify a few other things like whether or not I limit the deployment to only specific areas. If I wanted to add those filters, I could do. But you'll also notice on the side that we have the DocGen package step. So this is the first step, and we provide a wizard-like experience that will help walk you through each step of the configuration. So here, I've set that I've wanted the opportunity, and I'm obviously going to want that data. So I first need to establish that. So I'm going to save here. And what it's going to do, very usefully, it's going to go away and it's going to set up the standard relationships that I need out of the box. So here it's created a relationship straight through to the opportunity. It's also pulled in the opportunity products as a row replication, so I could bring those into any kind of table. And it's also made all of the top-level objects available to me out of the box. I didn't have to go through steps to set that up. Now, if I want to add more relationships to this, you're going to see how this represents those new relationships being set up. So I want to delve deeper into my opportunity, and I want to go to a child object underneath the opportunity. So I want quote, and that's going to be related by the opportunity ID. And I want to be able to create a new table for every quote that's associated to that opportunity. If I want to, if I had no records available against that opportunity, then it wouldn't include the table, or you can keep a blank table if you'd prefer to represent your data in that way. So once I save that, it's going to actually visually show it as a new added child object. And I can go further and actually get further into my Salesforce object hierarchy. So now I can go into quote, and I can actually get down to a further item within quotes for quote line items. And I want to associate that by the quote ID and bring row replication into each of those tables that I created. So we'll just save that. You can see here how the structure starts to build up across your relationships, making it far more visually understandable for end users, for the administration, for anyone who has to interact with the document packages.
Tom, I've just got another question that just came in. Are there any limitations to how many relationships you can create?
In terms of specific relationships, so the number of relationships that you can create is more to do with the depth. So you can go 4 levels deep in terms of gaining some form of relationship to each other. Obviously, if I wanted to add more top-level objects and reference information within that, then I could do so. So I could go in and maybe I want to bring in case information, right? If this was a support-related issue, or I wanted to bring some support-related information in context to some sales information, I'll be able to do that. Either utilizing these ability to add top-level objects, or by adding extended features with things like standalone data or SQL queries to get further into your Salesforce objects.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Okay, so the next stage after data is documents. So similar to what Palesa showed you, now without the reliance on Adobe Flash, which I'm sure any existing users will be pleased to hear. So now you're able to just jump in and explore your various storage locations, whether they be in Salesforce documents or libraries, or whether you keep them in another storage solution. So here I'm able to go through to my DocGen templates, and I'm able to explore my templates and find exactly the file that I want. So in this case, I'm going to grab my quote summary. So now I've selected that, I get all my options for managing the template. One thing I like to point out is that, from an administrative point of view, you may name your files something with maybe template in the name or anything like that. But when it comes to bringing it into the context of a document package, you may want to rename it to something a bit more specific to the use case in question. So here, maybe I want to say this is the quote, customer quote document, right? And make it a bit more readable for that end user. I can access everything from conditionality between the template. If I want to make it an optional inclusion, I'm able to do that and set up a logical rule for that inclusion based on dynamic bits of data. So I could use a field tag, or I can specify, in this case, I'm just going to say always. Once I've done that, I'm able to click Save, and that document will get added, and you can see that the tick has come through on the little step-by-step wizard. Then we can get into delivery. So with delivery, I can edit the file name. So just like Palesa showed you, I'm able to jump in here, grab maybe some field tags. So let's jump into the field tagger. I've got access to all of these various objects already. If I wanted to go grab some from the new relationship I set up for quote line item, for example, I could come in here and grab one of those bits of information and map it across to wherever I need. Now, finally, once you save that, you'll have that delivery, you'll be able to manage the actual delivery option. So here, I can come in and I can select download as an example. I can specify how I want this to be named. So in some cases, I actually like to present these as generate and download, so the end user really understands exactly what's going to happen when they click that button. I can go through to my different output types, whether I want them as a single PDF, same as the original, or a combination of the two. In this case, let's go for a single PDF. I can define options such as on-screen preview before sending, maybe on-screen and auto-send. In this case, we'll just go for automatically. And then once I'm ready, I'm going to click Save. And one thing that you'll notice is that on the right, a little lightning component flips over with a bunch of confetti, and we get presented with the test.gen package. So rather than having to go back over to the record in order to test them, I can test them directly from the page I configured it. So I'm able to jump in, specify a record. So in this case, this is the opportunity record that I want to run it against. I'm going to pick a particular contact. And you'll notice that I have two options, one called test download and one called generate and download. So this is the one that I configured, whereas we always include this test download option for administrators in order to be able to just test the document package. They don't have to set up a specific delivery option for that. So here, if I were to click test and run the document package, then that's going to go away, gather the data, and generate the document for me. Now, whilst that's doing that, you'll notice below we have the visibility box, and this stayed there throughout the entire configuration, and that's for you to be able to add new permissions and new users who can access that particular document. And the way in which our security works within Salesforce is we map to your Salesforce security settings. So your profiles, your roles, your permission sets and groups are already going to be defined within your Salesforce org. So it's very easy for you to just match them up to the current permission structures that you already know and use. So it's simply a case of going into here, finding maybe roles and ticking the ones who you would want to be able to use them. And then we'll just save that. And if we jump into the file, you'll see that I have been able to pull through all of my quote information, my line items, as well as some calculations occurring, totaling out those figures, which if I needed to, I could pull back into my Salesforce record. And just as a contrast, I downloaded the template earlier, so you can see how those tags exist across the document. So I'm starting a table here for the quotes, and for each quote, there would be a new table created, which you can see in the document. So that's a look at the new version of our designer. So right now, a question that's just come in, is the Lightning version available now? No, this is not currently available. We're looking to potentially release it with, I believe it was version 15 of Salesforce, but as this is currently in development, those timelines could change. We're still in the early stages with it, so any particular feedback or thoughts on it, we'd be very interested to hear from some of our existing customers. But I just wanted to be able to share some of this cool stuff coming down the line out of Dreamforce last week. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll pass you back to Will.
Yep, sorry guys, that's, there we go, that's better. So yeah, with that, let's wrap up. I don't think we'll have time for Q&A since we've already reached our 45-minute time slot, and we don't want to keep you guys for any longer. So just a few kind of next steps points. If you want a personalized demo of any document packages that you think would be great automated in your life, then head over to our homepage and click that big orange button in the top right corner and request a demo from our team, and we'll be happy to do that. Alternatively, visit us on the App Exchange and download a trial. And, you know, the best way to learn these products is to start using them. So that's a good option as well. Also on the App Exchange, I mentioned those case studies and other resources earlier. You can find them all listed there, so it might be an easier place to find them if you want to take a look at any other case studies, the product sheet, for example. And also our Learning Center. I think you can get there through the website via resources and support. So click on those two and you should see an option for the Learning Center. There you can get a beginner's sort of run through and an intermediate run through of Nintex Document Generation for Salesforce. So with that, thank you again for everyone who's attended. In regards to the demo earlier that Tom did, but we couldn't quite finish due to a bit of technical difficulty, these things happen. We will re-record that and include it in the follow-up email. With that, I'll say thank you again and goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thanks everyone for attending.
All right, cheers.